customer service, done right, can be your company's single biggest competitive advantage. Welcome to the Customer Service Revolution. Join customer service authority and best-selling author John DiJulius as he interviews leaders who are revolutionizing their industries. This is more than a podcast, though. It's a movement. The Customer Service Revolution is a radical overthrow of conventional business mentality designed to transform what customers and employees experience. If you're a revolutionary customer service leader who's ready to stop competing on price and obsessed with building a brand that people cannot live without, this podcast is for you.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Customer Service Revolution podcast. This is episode 28, and we're glad you are here with us today. We are going to be recapping the fifth and final session of the Customer Service Revolution Conference 2020, the first ever virtual conference that was fantastic. I am Dave Murray, the senior consultant for the DiJulius Group, and today I am again joined by our fearless leader, John DiJulius. Hello, John.
Hello, Murray. What an exciting culmination. I don't know if we've talked about this in the previous weeks, but when we as a team, as an organization, pivoted in summer, late spring, I don't even know, and made the decision, which back then seemed to be a tough decision because we thought, we could be coming out of the pandemic, hopefully soon. But we said, all right, we gotta, choose a path. And so we chose virtual, which was scary as hell because we've never done anything to this scale. And we know our attendees that come live every year to Cleveland are used to an incredible attendee experience. And we weren't sure we could replicate that. And man, I'm really proud of the feedback we got, what our team pulled off. Not only those of us who were in front of the camera, but more so to all the team members that worked so hard behind the scenes in so many aspects that made this such an incredible event.
Yeah, I agree 100% with you, John. I am extremely proud to be a part of this conference and be a part of this organization with what we pulled off. And, another thing that really stands out to me, you mentioned the attendee experience that exists in Cleveland, and we were concerned about how do we replicate that. The other thing that happens in Cleveland, and I talk about this all the time, but I feel it's so important. The other thing that happens in Cleveland is the sense of community that exists amongst our attendees and sharing ideas, and everyone is willing to help everyone else and
just
want
to
to
be
share
clear,
brilliant ideas.
When you say in Cleveland, the event happens in Cleveland, but 98% of the people are not from Cleveland. So it's not,
right. People
it's not
come
a
from
Cleveland
all over the world.
Community. It's the community that, it gets together in Cleveland.
Right. Absolutely. Right. It's the community that our attendees create when they come to the conference from everywhere, primarily North America, but we get people from Europe, from New Zealand, from Australia. So people truly come from all over, and it is a sense of community that is created. So I was worried about what would that look like in this virtual world, but man, our attendees brought it. They were on the chat, they were supporting each other, they were sharing ideas, they were posting things to the social wall that were ideas or best practices. It was amazing to see. I was thrilled to be a part of it.
Yeah, so many different things. It was funny yesterday, the last day we shot the conference live, week 5, October 29th. I don't know if you saw our internal chat, but a lot of our team members said they had tears in their eyes because this was the last one. And that always surprises me because, as you know, it is so much work that I sometimes think our team members are, just want to get through this so they can go back to, their normal lives, their normal jobs, and not have the additional stress. But God, they're so engaged in it. It really, it is so cool to see how much they care about the whole event.
Yeah, absolutely. As always, it was great to see. And while we missed seeing everyone's faces, it was an amazing 5 sessions, an amazing month of October, and so much great content. That's the other cool thing, that we were not lacking for content, right? Normally when we're together in that conference center in downtown Cleveland, people are taking notes left and right. Well, the same thing was happening, right? It was, there was so much information that was shared, and that was great to be a part of as well.
Yeah, before we get started, we need to jump in because of all the incredible content that was shared. The last thing that I think was the proudest is I just felt like of the 12 years we've been putting this on, while it's always important, this year was the most important with getting our 1,400 revolutionaries that registered some critical best practices, and more importantly, positivity, inspiration at a time when we all need that right now. And that was the proudest that, of the culmination of everything of what I felt like it really gave our community, our revolutionaries, ourselves, a bounce in their step to hopefully finish 2020 strong and have a great start to 2021.
Yeah, that's a great point, John. I think that the community out there, the customer experience community, the people that we deal with the most that are coming to our conference on a regular basis, they needed this, right? We needed it. We needed to create it and deliver it because it was great for us to be a part of, but our attendees needed it as well. They needed that shot in the arm as we, are in Q4 here and looking towards a kind of uncertain 2021, at least at the start. So you're right. I think that was great. And you mentioned our attendees being revolutionaries. And so that's where we're going to start when we talk about this conference, because your title was, what does it truly take to be a revolutionary? But before we get there, I just want to remind everyone that you are listening to the Customer Service Revolution podcast. We're here every week talking about customer service topics. This particular week, we are recapping the Customer Service Revolution conference. We're about to dive into that right now. But before we do, we just ask that if you like what you're hearing, please share your thoughts. Please comment. That helps us so much. We want to learn from what your comments are. Please share with your family, friends, coworkers that you would think would benefit. And of course, subscribe. We are available on every podcast platform out there. So go search and subscribe for the Customer Service Revolution podcast. So John, let's get back to session number 5 and kicking that off. And we talked about revolutionaries. And that's what your topic was, what it takes to be a revolutionary. And you started with the key piece that they need to have first. So let's listen to your first clip.
It all starts with having a vision of what could be. A true purpose is a vision of how you will make the world a better place. A captivating vision inspires people to become evangelists around a movement. It's not the great idea that works. It's the great passion behind it. Every original idea was met with eye rolling and laughing. That is why most are killed long before they can ever become great. If you have a great idea, put on a bulletproof vest and get after it. Passion is the emotional fuel that drives your vision. It's what you hold on to when your ideas are being challenged and people turn you down, when you are rejected by the so-called experts and the people closest to you. It's the fuel that keeps you going when there's no outside validation for your dream. First, you need to believe in yourself. Don't waver. There will be people that don't think like you do, that don't have your vision.
So my biggest takeaway from that, John, from that first clip of yours, is when you say passion is the emotional fuel. That's so important. And, we always hear people say, follow your passions. And it's not necessarily because the money will follow. It's because you need that passion to get where you want to go. And if you're doing something that you're truly passionate about, then you'll have that fuel to get there. What an important message.
Yeah, and we've heard it from so many of the great speakers this month over the Customer Service Revolution. Jesse Itzler, Tom Bilyeu, so many people saying, basically the same thing. And I think, by week 5, we've had so many great ideas, and now it was time to really, help people get after it and realizing that it's going to be hard. And we're all going to fail, but fail's temporary as long as you get back up and push through it.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, We started week one with the great Guy Kawasaki, who obviously was with Apple in the early days, got to work closely with Steve Jobs as part of that inner circle. And then in this next clip, you talk a little about Steve Jobs and one of the tools that he kind of possessed that made him who he was. Let's listen to this clip.
Reality distortion field was a combination of Jobs' charismatic style, indomitable will, and an eagerness to bend any fact to fit the purpose at hand. Even though Apple employees were aware of what Jobs was doing, they would eventually give up and go along with it and end up doing the impossible.
Yeah, I love that about Steve Jobs. And I love that about, every great innovator, all the businesses that have just revolutionized. Again, if you were to tell me that you could build a business, you were starting a business that sold shoes online, I would have told you you're idiotic. I would never invest. But I mean, that goes for so many of the business models that are now the standard today. And I was having a meeting with our John Roberts spa managers, and we're talking about, reimagining and what we have to do. And, we were writing down all the ideas. And I said, guys, everything on this board makes perfect logical sense, which concerns me. Right? Like we have to reimagine logic. And if it makes logical sense, there's a really good chance that someone else is already doing it. And, we have to push the boundaries. So what is our reality distortion field that we won't allow what has been and the naysayers to talk us out of it?
Yeah, absolutely. And, getting back to Steve Jobs and having that reality distortion field and hearing Guy speak at the beginning of the conference, and you reference it, I mean, he turned people into believers, right? That's what he did. And what an amazing tool that he had. And speaking of believers and belief systems, the next clip of you, John, is a great story. I love this story. I heard you tell it a long time ago, and I kind of forgotten about it. And I was thrilled to hear you bring it up again, because it just stresses the importance of what we believe in and why that's so important. So let's hear this clip.
It wasn't just dangerous, it was impossible. The human body had reached its limit. Then on May 6, 1954, Roger Bannister made history and shocked the world when he broke the 4-minute mile barrier. The impossible was made possible. Could this feat ever happen again? Well, within the next 12 months, 24 more runners broke the 4-minute mile mark. So I ask you, what happened in those 12 months? Did the human anatomy change? No. The belief system of what people thought was possible had changed.
Yeah, I love that story. Yeah, it's the belief system, right? That it ties great into the reality distortion field. We're the only ones that limit our own possibilities with the ceilings that we impose or we allow other people to impose.
Yeah, and it just goes to show, again, what you brought up in the first clip, how important that passion is, right? Because if you have that passion, you have that belief, those are two important tools that are going to help you get to your goals. But if you don't have them, you're probably not going to make it. So it's really important to have both of those things, passion and the belief. And then the next clip, John, of you is great. It's defining what a revolutionary is. Let's listen to that.
You are a revolutionary if, and only if, you are fascinated by the future, restless for change, impatient for progress, and deeply dissatisfied with the status quo. As a revolutionary, you are never satisfied with the present because in your head, you can see a better future. And the friction between what is and what could be burns you, stirs you, and propels you forward. Let's go start a revolution.
You know what, Dave? They don't call me CX gangster for nothing.
Right. You're absolutely right.
And actually, I don't think anyone calls me that but myself. But, someone had to start it.
Well, yeah, and you don't have the license plate yet, but once that comes in, people will call you that all the time as you drive by.
Right. Well, good. It was a fun way to end my week 5 and lead into someone who's both of ours just idol. And I've been jealous of you because you've really gotten to know our next icon really well, way more than I have. You've worked with him. They've hired you. They've hired the DiJulius group, but you've been the lead consultant working with the Ken Blanchard companies, and they have a great organization from what you tell me, and it's obvious, but I got to believe one of the coolest things that you got from it was getting to know Ken Blanchard.
Well, absolutely. Ken is amazing. You can't have a conversation with Ken Blanchard and not learn something. It's not possible, right? He's going to share something that you haven't heard before, a new way of thinking about things. And that's exactly what he did in his talk on leadership and how important leadership is to obviously service, but everything we do as an organization. And Ken's title of his talk was Leading at a Higher Level. And, for a minute there, John, during the live broadcast yesterday, we thought we had some breaking news because you kept referring to him as Sir Ken Blanchard. And so there was some breaking news that he might have been knighted, but then we later found out that you just gave him that title, not the Queen.
Yeah, no, I don't know why. I just feel like I'm missing something when you just simply say Ken Blanchard, and that's silly to say because by itself that should be enough. But I always feel like I need to start it with Sir Ken or something like that. But yeah, Ken Blanchard's presentation. He's written 65 books, Dave. I mean, that means if you or I write a book every year for the next 60 years, we won't catch him. And that's right. Given,
and he's got another one coming out.
And he has another one coming out. I mean, it's crazy. But his presentation was Leading at a High Level. And let's open up with his first clip here.
And effective leaders are people who understand that the two elements you focus on are results and human satisfaction. And great leaders do it by understanding and being able to engage in 4 areas that are really important. The first one is to have the right target and vision. See, leadership's about going somewhere, but people got to know, where are you going? The second one that they really understand and take care of is their people. They treat their people right. And then the third one, which we've already mentioned, and it's really where we're focused on, is to what? Take care and treat your customers right. Now, the fourth one, I think, really brings it together. So you have a compelling vision, you treat your people right, you treat your customers right, and what brings it together? To having the right kind of leadership. And to me, the right kind of leadership is servant leadership.
Yeah, I mean, that's Ken Blanchard, and he makes it simple, and it's great, and there's so much there, right? Having that vision, and he gave so many examples in between his each one of those of different companies that have done each one of those, the right vision, treating the employees right, taking care of the customers, and it's funny, Dave, of the 4, the one he spent the least amount of time on, which I agree with, was taking care of the customer, because, basically if you do the other 3, it just falls into place for the customer, right? If you have the vision and you're constantly pointing to it, and you really model that behavior by the way you take care of your employees, and you have a servant's leadership, you can't help but have the customer be the benefactor of all of it.
Yeah. And Ken said something along those lines that really stuck with me when he said, if you're a leader, your number one customer is your team, period. It doesn't matter if you're in sales, doesn't matter if you deal with external customers, your team is your number one customer. And if you think about it for a minute, so many organizations don't have that mindset, don't have that philosophy, aren't training their up and coming emerging leaders on that. And, so that's a hole that we see out there in leadership, and it trickles into the customer service that we experience and in all facets of an organization. It's such an important mindset to have, and not enough organizations focus on that.
Yeah, let's a short clip next for Ken is really expanding upon his point of his last point of what servant leadership truly is.
Philosophically, you turn the pyramid upside down. So now everybody works for their people who eventually works for their customer. And that's really what makes servant leadership come alive.
I mean, that's so simple, but turning it upside down where, the chain of command, the bottom, which we're used to seeing the frontline facing receptionist or customer service reps or whoever that is your executive team. And then the second tier, and then the third tier is employees. And at the top is the customer. And, looking at from that aspect changes your approach to everything you do.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I feel as though it's lacking in a lot of organizations. And Ken brought it up yesterday that one of the reasons that they created their leadership MBA that they have at the University of San Diego is because leadership often isn't a part of even those master's programs, right? So it's definitely lacking out there. It's information that people need and be able to utilize.
Well, and you know what else that we're not playing here because he had so many great information and tidbits. But how about when he was a professor before I think he started his own, and he basically, upset the chain of command there because he gave everyone the, test and answers at the beginning of the semester and to all his students. And they're like, what are you doing? And he said, well, I thought the whole concept here was to teach him the material. And but not by giving him the answers. And, again, why not? Like, that's, who cares as long as they leave here knowing the material. And I think he wrote a book after that. Don't grade me, or, I forget what the title was. Don't give me a test, give me the answers, or something to that effect, which I loved.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And that ties in nicely to our next clip where he talks about employees giving their managers their own report cards, right? At this time of year right now, we're in Q4, a lot of organizations are doing their year-end evaluations. And he turns that upside down too and says employees should be coming with what they think it is. And it's the manager's job to then guide them to get where they want to go. So let's listen to this clip.
Report gives their manager their report card, and it has first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, fourth quarter overall performance. And in that quarter, they write down their goals and they give themselves an A, a B, or a C. There's no D's or F's. And the job of the manager is agree or disagree. And sometimes somebody might rate themselves high and the manager might say, I don't think that's quite an A yet. It's a good solid B. Let's talk about how we make it an A. Or somebody might rate themselves low and the manager might say, I don't think that's a C. I think it's up there with that B. How can we move it to an A?
I love that. I think that's so cool. And I think to his point, a lot of people will be tougher on themselves than, their bosses. And, that's a completely different conversation versus me sitting down with you saying, Dave, you got to be, and that, like we talked about, I think last week, the natural defensiveness kicks in on all of us. Oh, but what about the time I worked late or, this or this and saved the best client? But when it comes from the employee and you're actually, giving him a pep talk saying, no, Dave, I'm reminding you about the time you worked late, saved the client. And, but I do agree with you. There is opportunities, I just think that's brilliant. One of many brilliant things Ken had to say.
One other thing that he said on this topic that really stuck with me, and it's very similar to the story you just shared when he was teaching in college and gave the tests and the answers out. He said something about this particular process when leaders are sitting with employees. He said, your job as a leader is not to mark their paper up. Your job is to help them get A's, to support them to get there. And again, that's another way of looking at it and being that servant leader, that supportive leader, and not just there to find what's wrong, but to help get that team member to go where they want to go.
Yeah, and God forbid everyone should get A's, right? No,
Right.
we need a distribution curve. And what does that say about a teacher if, it's spread out? Like, isn't your objective as a teacher, is that everyone got the content and got an A? I think it would make you look, that would make you a better teacher, that everyone that takes your course knows the information so well. So yeah, just crazy backwards stuff. Dave, let's take a 2-second timeout and talk about some exciting things the DiJulius Group has coming up.
Yeah, I'd love to. I'd love to share one of the things that we've been working really hard on behind the scenes, and we're going to be launching in January of 2021, and it's CX Coaching. And it is for the entrepreneurs out there that want to own and operate their own business, love customer experience, want the opportunity to get into many different organizations and cultures and help guide them through the process. You get to learn our 10 commandment methodology at the DiJulius Group and the workshops and a step-by-step guide of how to lead organizations to customer experience excellence. And you get to do it every day that you want. And so it's a fantastic opportunity. You actually have a webinar coming up on that pretty soon, John. I know that the replay link will be on the website if people want to check that out for more information. But it's an exciting opportunity for anyone out there that's been thinking about going out on their own, starting their own company, and really has a passion and a belief system, going back to your session today, John, passion and a belief system about customer experience and helping others.
Yeah. And as you said, Dave, it'll be in the show notes of how you can re-listen to that webinar on CX coaching, as well as you could reach out and who you could reach out and speak to. It's just a great opportunity. Our mission at the DiJulius Group is to change the world by creating a customer service revolution. And while we feel that we've, made a dent, we're limited. And that's why we think by licensing future coaches to do this in their areas and their markets, it could just really, really light the fire that really helps make this a true worldwide revolution. So really excited about that. All right, let's get back to our third speaker of week 5 of the Customer Service Revolution Conference. And this is episode 28 of the Customer Service Revolution podcast. And that was our one and own Jess Pischel, a customer experience consultant for the DiJulius Group. And I loved her topic, Dave, tricks to make it all stick, because, as we discussed, week 5, 20 speakers, 20 presentations, a lot of great ideas, but most people aren't short on ideas. They're short on, making them see the light of the day and lasting.
Yeah. And, the other thing too is the conference itself threw a lot of information at people over the previous 4 sessions. I know that Jess and I did each week. One of us had a talk on some of our methodology and utilizing that methodology. So Jess kind of put it all together in her last session this particular week, where she focused on how do you make it stick? How do you go out there and make sure that once you create these great tools that people understand them, people are using them, and it's going to continue on. So she had some great tips.
And here's her 5 best ways to make it stick. Let's listen.
I am thrilled to share how some of my most successful clients have achieved unified implementation throughout their brand. Number 1, include key players early and often. Number 2, tell them the what's in it for them. Number 3, beta test. 4, walk the talk. And finally, number 5, huddle up.
Yeah, those are great. So many have, come back from things that you mentioned. The huddle has just been, I think this might be the third week that has been brought up in a presentation that's so underutilized. But my favorite is probably the beta test. So you take your time and you can explain it better than I can, Dave. What does the beta test look like for organizations that have created a new system?
Well, what it does really is allows you to get proof of concept, right? So whether in your organization that's doing it by department, or maybe you have multiple locations, so you pick one location and you roll it out and you basically prove that it works so that you can help sell it to all of your other leaders, other managers out there, that not only do we have this great tool, but here's how and why we know it's going to work for you. Here are the results that we helped drive at this location or within this department. So it really helps prove it and helps with your buy-in.
And the tweaking of it and not having egg on the face that, you rolled it out without thinking through everything. And now you've lost the credibility for that and any future rollouts. So Jess's next clip here is coming off of her number one point, the importance of including key players early and often, basically making your steering committee and how you make it up.
Real buy-in involves at least some element of co-creation. It invites necessary discussion, healthy debate, and allows everyone to feel even more invested in the outcome. You can listen for any criticism or objections early on. This way, you can adjust your approach immediately and redirect the conversation. Don't be afraid to be assertive in addressing instances where you see objections forming. This is important for two reasons. First, small problems have a bad habit of swelling into larger ones if not addressed. Second, you don't want any unhappy employees poisoning the minds of other employees who are excited about your training program.
Yeah, I love that, David. And I like for you to go into it because, this is really where you and Jess shine, working with the clients and helping them create the energy around it, the team that is going to champion it. So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So one of the things that she brings out there that I think is so important is that co-creation is important, and it invites healthy criticism and debate. So that's so important. We want to get those things out on the table. We want to hear what some of the pushback will be. We want to hear what different teams around the organization might be thinking. Because remember, each team, each department is going to have a different perspective. And we're not creating a tool that's going to be a one size fits all. There are going to be different uses for most of the tools that we are creating. So it's so important to get those thoughts, to get that debate, to get those conversations going. And then, as Jess mentioned, at the end of the day, then all those people are actually part of the creation process, which obviously helps with the overall buy-in. So it is really critical to make sure you have those voices involved.
Yeah. And Dave, it's got to be proud as the senior customer service consultant to see Jess just totally blossom as a consultant, as a keynote speaker. Her clients love her. The scores she's gotten at the Revolution, this presentation or week one presentation. While I don't think we doubted it when we hired her years ago that this was going to be, she definitely had the potential. I didn't think it was going to be this quick. And it's really impressive. The poise, she's barely 30, and that doesn't hurt her at all. When Jess starts talking, no matter who is in the audience, no matter who's in that executive room, they realize right away she knows her stuff. And that's why we call her the CX diva.
Yes. And it's also why she is the dean of the Customer Experience Executive Academy, because she has so much great knowledge in her short time working with the DiJulius group. And I say short time compared to a lot of us, but it's still, she's on 4 years with us now, I believe. And she's made such a positive impact with the clients she's worked with, has jumped right in and brought some great experience with her. Keep in mind, she has her MBA. She had some great corporate experience before joining us, and she brought all that with her. Plus, going back to your opening session, John, she has that passion and she has that belief system in herself and in the organization and what we do, and she brings it to life every day.
Well, again, it's praise to her, but praise to you. She was a sponge that you really took and gave her your wealth of knowledge, and she trusted you and you trusted her, and it's really paid off. So before we talk about our last two amazing speakers of the 2020 Customer Service Revolution, Dave, can you remind everyone how they can subscribe, rate, review, refer?
Absolutely. If you like what you're hearing, please go to wherever you go for your podcast. We are just about everywhere, whether that's Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, you name it, we're there. Go and subscribe, and you'll get notifications when we have a new episode launched every week. And also, please share with your friends, your colleagues, anyone that you think would benefit and enjoy hearing the topics of customer experience that we're talking about each week. And then lastly, we'd love for you to rate us and to share your thoughts. We thrive on feedback, and we want to hear what you think. We want to hear about future topics. We want to hear what you have to say about our podcast. So please share your thoughts and rate us. And again, you can do that wherever you go to download your podcasts.
All right, Dave, back to our second last speaker of week 5, and that is Miss Adrienne Bankert. Many probably have seen her on Good Morning America. She's a news correspondent, covering a lot of, news and headlines, but she's also a speaker and author of the book that just came out, Your Hidden Superpower, which is kindness. And that's the title of her presentation that she gave for us at week 5 of the Customer Service Revolution. And I don't think her message could be more timelier.
Yeah, people in the audience took so much from what she had to say. And if you think about it, her message, John, is quite simple on kindness, but she really talks about kindness and being purposeful about it. So let's listen to her first clip, because she had some great things to say.
How not only is kindness powerful, but it's necessary in today's marketplace. But what we've done as a culture and as a business community is relegated kindness to a very basic elementary principle. We've decided that as adults, we should know better and know what kindness looks like. But let me tell you, most of us need a re-education. We need to reimagine what kindness really means. We need a kindness revolution. Now, I know there are people who in negotiations and conversations and contract talks are able to be the bulldog, but you can be the kind bulldog. I think about somebody, really, just bear with me, the kind bulldog, think about it, where you are assertive, where you do know what you want, where you do stand up for what you believe in, but you also have the calm.
Yeah, reimagine and rethink what kindness really is. And I love her quote of being the kind bulldog. And Seth Godin said something, I think it was week 2, that even when you have to fire clients, you do it with kindness and care, which, we can do everything with kindness and care.
Well, and Adrienne, I think, brought up a really good point when she said at one point that somewhere along the lines, we as people kind of got kindness confused with being a doormat and kindness confused with being walked on. And she's saying that doesn't have to be the case. You can be assertive and kind. You can stand up for what you believe in and be kind while you do it. It doesn't have to be an and or. And I think a lot of people view it that way.
Yep. And I love her, how she defines kindness here.
If you look up the definition of kindness in the oldest dictionaries, it doesn't just mean helping somebody. It doesn't just mean looking out for someone in need, but it means making others happy or giving them help by granting their desires or their requests.
Yeah, making others happy by granting their desires or their requests. And she talks about how you kind of, make that part of your day.
Yeah. And again, it's something that, if we're not thinking about it often, which I don't think enough of us are, that we do need to be purposeful about it. We need to have it top of mind. We need to be looking for areas where we can use and execute kindness because it has to be something that we're focused on.
So she just didn't, theorize. She talked about, specific examples. Let's listen.
Scheduling kindness throughout the day lends itself to me becoming enamored with kindness, becoming programmed to function in a kind mindset. Use your resources for the benefit of others. I have a woman who works on my team, and she found out that a couple of her friends had been furloughed. She called a number of mutual friends, and she said, "What are we going to do about it?" They gathered their resources together and made sure that those friends who were removed from their job had groceries and meals for the next 2 months. She was using her resources. She was working as a team. She was collectively taking ownership of community.
I really like that. And that really hit home with me in a way of, I think I have empathy. I may reach out to you and say, "Hey, did you hear about Joe lost his job?" Or, whatever might have happened. And we'll reach out to him. We'll text him. But, doing something, take it to a different, because we all have resources. You might know someone you can introduce them to. We might be able to, make sure his kids, have rides home, whatever the situation they may be going through. I really liked, utilizing a community's resource.
Yeah, use your resource. And then another thing that she said in that clip that really sticks with me is schedule kindness throughout your day, right? Look for areas where you can do it. And maybe it's a certain time. I think in her talk, she brought up about 11 o'clock that she tries to focus on something where she can bring kindness in, whether it's someone that she's been working with or reaching out to an old friend or whatever that may be. But, a lot of us like to schedule our days. We feel good about scheduling our days. And here's another opportunity to work this into that already existing schedule.
Yeah. And I think she ends with probably the most important advice that we could all hear, especially when we're trying to be our best warriors and we can forget the most important person to be kind to.
And my last point to you today is be kind to yourself. Make the time for whatever you can do to stay relaxed, to stay calm, because people need a safe harbor in the eye of a storm. Because your kind self is your best self. You won't just be known as a kind company for your great product. You'll actually end up making kindness famous. And that's something we all need to see.
Yeah, there was a lot there in, a very short clip, from taking care of ourselves to, your kind self is your best self, to let's make kindness famous.
Another thing she said too is how being kind to yourself actually has a desired impact on others as well, right? Because it allows you to be calm. It allows you to be that safe harbor that others may need. I love that analogy.
Yeah, that was really a great presentation, timely. As she said, it goes along with what we're doing. A kindness revolution will really go a long way today. Well, that brings us to our final speaker of the 2020 Customer Service Revolution and Week 5. And, I'm sure some people were scratching their head because, I guess he definitely falls under the sleeper speaker category. He's a 21-year-old kid. What, is a 21-year-old kid doing in this illustrious lineup, speaking to leaders? And as you know, Dave, when we were trying to figure out what our theme was going to be for this, and we knew it had to be impactful. It had to carry some weight that people can use it, for them. And then one of us, Denise, I think, heard this song called Reimagine that was sung by this 21-year-old talented singer, songwriter, actor. And when I heard it, I think when we all played it, we just knew that this, solidified the theme to be Reimagine. And just the words he used in his song was just critical. So he allowed us to use the song as our theme. We played it every week. May have played it too many times, but that was my intention. I wanted it to be in people's heads. And so we asked this young man, J.R. Heckman, to come on and share why he wrote the song. So before we listen to his short clip of what inspired him, Dave, you have a little background with him, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I do. My oldest daughter sang in the church choir with JR back in Catholic school at St. Rita Catholic Church in Solon, Ohio. So I've seen JR perform since, he was probably in 3rd or 4th grade at the time, and doing solos, and he's just always been an amazing talent. And so I'm thrilled to see where he's wound up already at such a young age, what he's been able to accomplish. I expect way more out of him because he's that kind of talent for sure. And, I think it's just a cool story that he's going to talk about how the pandemic gave him this opportunity and what opportunities out there lie for us. And so just an amazing story.
Okay, let's listen.
As the pandemic hit in March, I was at NYU taking classes. I returned home for 5 months and made the decision to produce my original song, Reimagine, hoping that it would create a ripple for change in others. The chorus goes a little something like this. Reimagine what could be. Be the change that you want to see. When the world needs something new, let it come from you and reimagine.
Those are pretty powerful words coming from such a young man. And like kindness, such a poetic thing in today.
It really is. And what a great message, right? Let that change come from you. You be the change. If you're not happy, if you feel there needs to be change, well, then that change can start with you. And that's one of the big messages that comes from JR's lyrics. And I think they're really, really powerful.
Yeah, I wanted it to be the anthem for not only our revolution, but for, our clients, our 1,400 revolutionaries that registered for this. Because I think we need something right now. We all need something. And when this plays and we play it at work, we crank it up. And I think it helps remind us that, at the end of the day, we're in control. So I really liked it. And like I said, it just made it even better to come from a local kid from Cleveland. I had no idea that your daughter had knew him and had studied with him until after we hired him for the conference. But it was really cool, and it's a good anthem to pump yourself up to.
It sure is. As we listen to it in the background here, it's motivating and has the great message in the lyrics to go along with that motivation.
All right, Dave, that wraps up episode 28 of the Customer Service Podcast, which was recapping the final week 5 of the Customer Service Revolution Conference. I really enjoyed doing this with you. I benefited from it because it just re-solidified all these best practices that I heard from these speakers, and to be able to write down notes and recap them and get your perspective was just a treat for me and has energized me.
It was an incredible 5 weeks. And John, I just want to take a moment and on behalf of all the revolutionaries out there, thank you for being the driving force behind the revolution and keeping the customer service revolution going, even in these virtual times. We could have said, we'll wait till we can get back together in 2021 and taken a year off. But you knew that people needed this. You knew that we had the right formula and we would create a successful conference under your leadership. And we did just that. So thank you so much for having that vision.
Thank you, Dave. And thank you to you and our entire the DiJulius Group team. Just an incredible team effort. And we're excited about making next year's come true. And hopefully we'll be able to see everyone live in Cleveland in the fall of 2021. But that won't be the next time you hear from us, because we will be back with episode 29. And we're going to have some more great brand executives doing great customer service and employee experience things. And me and Dave will be back for plenty more. So thank you, Dave, Murray, for another great episode of the Customer Service Revolution podcast.
Thank you, John. We'll see everybody next time.